Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. On a calm Sunday morning, exactly at 9 o'clock, I found myself deeply contemplating my marriage to Mia. We had been together for 35 years in a cozy little house on the outskirts of town. Our home is modest but comfortable. A living room, a bedroom, and a garage that leads out to a spacious open terrace. There's enough space in the garage for our 2 cars and my favorite motorcycle, which I enjoy riding on. Mia casually mentioned that she had a date planned. It was set for Friday night, the same night we usually spent together in front of the TV. She explained that the date was with a colleague from another office in her company, and they were going to celebrate his birthday. Mia told me how their friendship had developed. His occasional visits to her office on Wednesdays had turned into casual coffee chats, and then into shared lunches. After one of those lunches, he stopped by her office to say goodbye. As they stood by the door, he kissed her, completely out of the blue. After the kiss, he asked her to dinner. "And you just agreed?" I asked, unable to hide my surprise. She hesitated slightly before admitting that it had caught her off guard. "We've always been honest with each other, Mia. Just tell me the truth," I urged. After a pause, she confessed that she might have hinted at the kiss. "It was just a kiss," she quickly added. "And did you kiss him back?" I asked more softly now. Her answer was gentle. "Yes." Over the next few evenings, we discussed the upcoming date. Mia remained calm, but her resolve troubled me. Each conversation only made things more complicated. It turned out that it wasn't really a birthday celebration, and no one else had been invited. I was growing increasingly irritated, and finally asked her directly, "Are you planning to sleep with him?" She didn't answer immediately, and her silence spoke louder than any words. "Why would you even think that?" she finally asked. The tension between us was palpable. "Your cheeks are flushed, and you look excited. That kiss, it thrilled you. You've mentioned how attractive he is. Twice," I accused. She sighed and acknowledged, "Yes, he's handsome, and yes, I'm excited. It's the first time I've thought about going on a date with someone else since we met, but my blush is because I came home early to bake him a birthday cake. It's in the oven right now." "A cake? When was the last time you baked a cake for me?" I retorted. Rolling her eyes, she replied, "Don't be so dramatic. I take you to your favorite restaurant every year on your birthday. Richard is divorced, lonely, and wasn't even planning to celebrate. I just felt sorry for him." I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. "Do you even know why he got divorced?" I asked. She shrugged. "We've never talked about it, but he's a good person, and I didn't want him to feel alone." The conversation was getting more and more tense. "Fine, I'll go with you," I offered, even though I already knew her answer. "No, Michael, it's a date," she said firmly. "Then just answer me. Are you planning to sleep with him?" Her response was cautious. "I don't have any such plans." Although her words were meant to ease my fears, they didn't calm me. "You know what he expects. That kiss. It wasn't just a friendly goodbye. He's hoping for more." "Michael, he's a man. Yes, maybe men think about intimacy when a woman agrees to a date, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sleep with him," she said, calmly but firmly. "So, you're saying it's possible?" I pressed, refusing to let the subject drop. "You're exaggerating. Richard is just a colleague. Yes, he's single, and yes, I agreed to have dinner with him. That's all." "I thought we were still deciding whether you should even go," I said, feeling my irritation rise. "It's just dinner, Michael, with a colleague. I've had dinner with female colleagues before, and yes, I'm going," she insisted. I couldn't hold back any longer. "He's more than just a colleague, Mia. He's an attractive man who has already kissed you, and you still haven't given me a clear answer. So I'll ask you again, directly. Are you going to sleep with him? Are you seriously thinking about sleeping with him?" Michael's tone was light, but the question hung in the air. "I'm not planning to," Mia replied nonchalantly, shrugging. "But I can't say it's completely out of the question, right? It all depends on how things unfold." "And what would that scenario look like?" Michael persisted, now with a hint of irritation in his voice. "Like, he offers you a ride home in exchange for something in his car in the parking lot? Or will you change your mind if his ex-wife shows up to dinner with their 5 kids? Changing the subject abruptly, Michael asked, "How are you even planning to get to this dinner?" "I called a cab. It'll be here at 7 p.m., Mia answered calmly. "Of course, so that means you'll be free to have a couple of glasses of wine, right?" His words dripped with sarcasm. "Don't be ridiculous," Mia sighed, clearly tired of the conversation. "Yes, I can have some wine, but I wouldn't drive even if I didn't drink. Why would I need the car?" At that moment, the oven timer rang, interrupting the moment. "The cake's ready," Mia announced, heading toward the kitchen. "Great," Michael muttered. "Maybe I'll have a slice." "Michael, sometimes you're just unbearable," Mia shot back. "And leave the cake alone. It's just a sponge cake. I know you don't even like that." "Calling me unbearable? Low blow, but fair," he admitted. "All right, I won't touch the cake." Mia carefully transferred the cake to a cooling rack. "Tomorrow, I'll cover it with fresh cream before taking it to the restaurant," she muttered, mostly to herself. The cake box was already prepped for the final delivery. "And don't touch the box either," she warned, glancing over her shoulder. "I know what you're capable of." "I won't touch anything," Michael responded with a lazy eye roll. As he returned to the living room, Michael asked, "Where is this dinner going to be?" "At the Hilton," Mia answered. "Of course, should have guessed," Michael smirked. "I bet he booked a room there too. Women these days are so easily satisfied, aren't they? He pays for dinner and wine, and you provide the bed," he continued, his irritation becoming more evident. "I heard the breakfast there isn't bad either." "Enough, Michael, I've had it," Mia snapped. "Your jealousy is exhausting, and it doesn't suit you. Richard didn't book a room, all right? It's just dinner. But if you keep this up, I might end up in bed with him just to spite you. So here's the deal. Stop being jealous, and I'll be home by midnight." Michael stared at her for a moment before responding. "I'll be honest, Mia. I don't like any of this." "Too bad," Mia retorted. "But since it bothers you so much, let me propose another deal." "I'm listening." Michael crossed his arms. "From now until the taxi arrives tomorrow, you don't mention it again. No arguments, no sarcastic comments. I'll be home by midnight, and on Saturday morning at 9, we'll sit down and talk. You'll have time to think it over, and you can decide what to do next. Whatever decision you make, I'll respect it." 9 a.m.? Michael asked skeptically. "Yes. That'll give you time to calm down and realize how insignificant this dinner is to our relationship. Whatever you decide at 9 a.m. on Saturday, I'll go along with it. If you tell me to stop seeing Richard, I will." Michael considered the proposal. "All right, let's make it simple. I'll have dinner early tomorrow and be gone before your big night." His words were dripping with sarcasm again, and Mia wrinkled her nose in response. "How generous," she replied dryly. "But I have 2 conditions," Michael quickly added. "First, I'll sleep in the guest room tonight and tomorrow. I don't want to talk to you until Saturday. Second, if you sleep with him, our marriage is on the line." "Agreed," Mia answered calmly. On Friday, as usual, Mia returned home before Michael. When I arrived, Mia was finishing decorating the cake. Luxurious chocolate letters formed the words, "Happy Birthday, Richard." But what truly caught my attention were the delicate pink hearts, carefully placed along the sides. Mia gave me a brief greeting, but I remained silent, standing firmly in the doorway. She shrugged as if trying to shake off the tension, and I headed to the guest room to change. Making sure she was occupied, I slipped into our bedroom. In the bathroom, I immediately noticed something was missing. The expensive bath oil I had recently bought for her was gone from the cabinet. Clearly, she was planning a relaxing bath, likely with my gift. On the bed, her evening outfit was already laid out. She had chosen an elegant black dress, classic and timeless. Next to the dress were black stockings with lace ties and black panties I hadn't seen before. A new velvet choker with an imitation diamond at the center was also part of the ensemble, but a bra was conspicuously absent. Under the bed were the highest heels I had ever seen. The curtains leading to the terrace were already drawn. I checked the bedroom door, locked it, and put the key in my pocket. Later, sitting in front of the TV, I heard Mia leave the kitchen. "I'm going to get ready," she said in a calm voice. Listen, Michael, I understand that you're upset, but there's no need to worry. There's nothing intimate here, and by tomorrow, it will all be over. I nodded in response, but as soon as I heard the bedroom door close, an overwhelming urge consumed me. I went to the garage, opened the motorcycle cover, and took it with me to the terrace. I couldn't see the bathroom, but I heard the water running for the bath. I waited, knowing she was already in the bath when the water stopped. Seizing the moment, I quietly opened the bedroom door and slipped inside. I spread the motorcycle cover on the floor and opened Mia's wardrobe. I quickly threw a pile of her clothes, everything from the hangers, the black dress from the bed, and more items from the drawers. Her purse lay on top of the pile. After closing the wardrobe, I glanced at her evening outfit. Stockings, the choker, and those high heels. Well, I couldn't just leave her barefoot, could I? Cruelty has its limits. I found her phone in her purse. Gathering everything, I took it to the garage and loaded it into the car trunk except for her purse, which I decided to search. Inside the purse was the usual set: money, cards, but what caught my attention was something unexpected: a pack of contraceptives, carefully hidden in the lining. We had never used them. I put them in my pocket, locked the trunk with her belongings, and checked her phone to see the details of the taxi she had ordered. It was almost 6:30 p.m., and the car was due to arrive at 7 p.m. I called. "Hello, I'd like to cancel the ride. My wife has come down with a cold," I added with irony. The operator politely replied, "No problem, sir. Thank you for letting us know." Shortly before Mia finished her bath, I rolled the motorcycle out of the garage and secured the cake box to the back with straps. Closing the garage, I rode off. I didn't want to arrive too early, so I made a short stop at a small corner store. There, I bought an overly sentimental card with bright pink hearts. "Can I borrow a pen?" I asked the cashier. The girl behind the counter smirked and handed me the thickest pen. "This happens a lot. Here, go ahead," she said. I scribbled on the card, "Stay away from my wife, or this birthday will be your last." Getting back on the bike, I arrived at the hotel just before 7. I peeked into the dining hall. There were only a few people inside, but at one table sat a dark-haired man, alone, with a bottle of red wine. 2 glasses were on the table, but only one was filled. He appeared in a suit with a dazzlingly red tie, a risky choice for a date. The hotel staff barely paid attention as a man wearing a rescue helmet walked in carrying a cake. "Delivery for Mr. Thomas," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The receptionist nodded, asking no questions, and let me through. It was a bold move, but so far, luck was on my side. I wasn't going to back down. I had found out that Mr. and Mrs. Thomas were staying in room 305, but the porter hinted that he was likely at the restaurant. "The man with the red tie?" I asked. She nodded. "Perfect." His face was puzzled when I sat down across from him. "A special delivery from Mia," I said calmly, adding to his confusion. Without hesitation, I took a napkin, unfolded it, and placed it on my lap. Then I opened the cake box, revealing an elegant dessert. But the cake wasn't the real surprise. Slowly, I raised my hand under the table, hidden beneath the napkin. In my grip was something far more dangerous. "It's your birthday, and I have a gun. Say one word. It'll be your last," I whispered. "Understand?" I asked. His face turned pale, and he gave a slight nod. I kept my hand under the table, aiming the weapon at him. "Now I'm going to ask you a few questions. Mia has already answered them, and by the way, she's my wife. If you lie, the next thing you'll see is your blood splattered all over the restaurant. Got it?" His face turned even paler. He nodded vigorously again. "How many times have you slept with her?" I asked sharply. "Never," he blurted out, trembling. "I swear, not once." His voice shook with fear. "You booked this room, so it's clear that tonight you intended to," I said dryly. "I wanted to, but it wasn't guaranteed," he mumbled. "Now the most important question." I leaned in closer. "Did Mia know you booked the room?" His throat tightened as he nervously swallowed. "Yes," he admitted. I quickly looked around. No one had noticed us. "You know how a man feels when his woman betrays him? So, you've got 2 choices." I paused to let him grasp the gravity of my words. Either I pull the trigger, and don't think I won't, because Mia is the love of my life, and she betrayed me, or I leaned in even closer, lowering my voice. Or you shove your face into this cake right now. The choice is yours. His response was immediate. He buried his face into the cake, cream smeared over his ears, completely ruining that ridiculous red tie. As he sat there, his face covered in cake, I quietly withdrew my hand from under the napkin. There wasn't a gun at all, just a bag filled with cream. I squeezed it, and the contents spilled onto his lap. "Well, Richard," I said with fake cheer, "you got your cream pie exactly where you wanted it." I crumpled the napkin and placed it next to the card I had left on the table. With his face still buried in the cake, I stood up. A few guests glanced over as I calmly drained his glass and poured the remaining wine over his head. No one said a word. When I got home, Mia was lying on the couch in a robe and slippers, her hair still wet from the shower. Not exactly the reaction you'd expect from someone who had just been caught cheating. "What did you do, Michael?" she shrieked. I put a finger to my lips and whispered, "Saturday at 9. Without another word, I went to bed. The next morning, I woke her up at 7 by throwing her clothes on the bed. "How did you get in here? I locked the door," she exclaimed in confusion. I waved the spare key in front of her, the one I'd used to enter through the terrace door. Then, without another word, I got on my motorcycle and rode to the next town for breakfast, leaving her to process what had happened. At exactly 9 o'clock, I returned home as planned. We sat at the dinner table, facing each other in tense silence. Mia's face twisted in displeasure as I placed a large, sharp cake knife between us on the table. She was dressed in a simple tracksuit. "You'd look better in a dress, Mia," I remarked. "These clothes are so drab. Maybe you should try something different. Stockings, maybe a choker." She didn't respond to my suggestion. Instead, she asked, "What else did you do last night besides taking my clothes?" "I stopped by the hotel," I replied calmly. "Told Richard you wouldn't be coming. But don't worry, I gave him the cake you made. He really liked it. Couldn't get enough, actually. Oh, by the way, here's your bag and phone. Oh, and I deleted his number. You won't be getting it back until Wednesday." "I might get it back," she muttered. "Let's not forget about last week," I continued. "You kept telling me over and over that your evening was just a dinner. You insisted nothing more was planned, swore there was no hotel reservation. But here we are, and just to remind you, you agreed to accept whatever I decide at exactly 10 o'clock. Mia nodded, without saying a word. "I checked the hotel," I said. "Turns out Richard did book a room, and from what I found out there's no way you didn't know, so tonight I get what I want. You'll be sleeping in the guest room. I'll be filing for divorce this week. By the weekend, I want you out of here." "I don't care where you go," I added coldly. Her face twitched, her mouth opened in shock, just like Thomas's when he realized it was all over. "I'm selling the house. You'll get nothing and don't expect any alimony. You'll have to manage on your own, and there's absolutely no chance." I paused, hitting myself on the head in frustration. "That's it," I declared. "Michael, please," she quietly begged. "No. Did you really think you could just run off, sleep with some random guy, and I'd just sit here like a fool?" "We never," she began, but I cut her off. "It doesn't matter. Stockings, a thong, no bra, that's what matters. You said you'd be at dinner for about an hour. That left you nearly 3 hours before you were supposed to call a taxi. What were you planning? Another few rounds before heading home?" "We're going to argue about furniture anyway, so let's start now," I said, pulling out 3 contraceptives and laying them on the table. I drove the knife into them, pinning them to the table. "You can keep this table. You're a deceitful, lying woman. I regret spending 35 years on you, and that's just our marriage." This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. You believe your world is unshakable. A sturdy home, a family, a routine that feels comfortable even amidst chaos. But everything shatters with a single sentence, spoken almost carelessly, with a cold smile on her lips. It's not just betrayal, it's laughter in the face of your principles, your love, your devotion. What does it feel like to hear words that scorch everything alive inside you, leaving only ashes and cold fury? What does it feel like to realize that the person you trusted until your last breath is willing to crush everything you built over the years for a fleeting thrill? And what will you do when the door to hell swings open before you, pushed by her hand without warning? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. People often say that trust is the cornerstone of marriage. For nearly a decade, I lived by that principle, pouring all of myself into my relationship with Lena, my wife, the mother of my children, the person I thought would stand beside me for life. Now, I'm left staring at the ruins of something I believed was unbreakable. The unraveling of our relationship didn't start with fights or outright deception. No, it began with a seemingly ordinary conversation, one that spiraled into chaos I never anticipated. One night, lying beside each other in bed, Lena turned to me with that familiar look, a mixture of nervous energy and firm intent. I immediately knew something was off. "Travis," she said slowly, her voice uncertain. "Martin and Julia invited us to something this weekend." I didn't look away from my phone. "Oh yeah? What kind of something?" I asked absently. There was a pause. She seemed to be summoning courage before she continued. "It's not your typical party," she said carefully. That got my attention. I looked over, a feeling of unease creeping in. "What does that mean?" I asked, bracing myself. "It's a swingers party." At first I laughed, assuming it was a joke, but her expression didn't change. "You're kidding," I said, sitting up straighter. "You're not serious." "I am," she replied, her voice more confident now. "We've been stuck in a routine, Travis. This could be something new, something exciting." I stared at her, trying to wrap my head around what she was suggesting. "Lena, do you hear yourself? You're talking about sleeping with other people." "It's not a big deal," she argued, folding her arms across her chest. "It's just supposed to be fun. Martin and Julia said it actually made their marriage stronger." "I don't care what it did for them," I snapped, my voice tight with disbelief. "That's not something I want any part of. End of story." But it wasn't the end. Not even close. Over the next several days, she kept bringing it up, slipping it into conversations when I least expected it. Whether I was loading the dishwasher or scrolling through my phone, she found moments to press the issue. "Just one night," she kept saying. "That's all I'm asking. Just try it." Her persistence didn't fade, it only intensified. By Thursday, she didn't bother trying to convince me anymore. As I was tucking our daughter Eliza into bed, she made her stance crystal clear. "I'm going," she said flatly. I followed her out to the living room, shutting the door behind me. "You're actually going?" I asked, my voice strained. "What about the kids?" "We'll get a sitter," she replied without emotion. "It's not a big deal." "It's a huge deal," I shot back. "Do you honestly think this will help our marriage?" "I do," she said, her words sharp. "You're always so rigid, Travis. Maybe if you loosened up, you'd see that this could be good for us." "Good for us?" I said, my voice rising. "You think me standing by while you sleep with someone else is going to fix things?" She rolled her eyes, the disdain in her gaze unmistakable. "You're being ridiculous." Anger welled up inside me, mixing with hurt in a way I'd never felt before. I looked her in the eyes and finally said what I'd been trying to avoid. "I'm not going. And if you do this, if you walk out that door, we're done. I'll file for divorce." Her eyes widened, but instead of backing down, she straightened her posture, doubling down. "You'd end our marriage over one night? Seriously?" "No," I replied coldly. "You're the one ending it by even suggesting this." She shook her head, clearly frustrated, and left the room. The silence that followed was suffocating. Divorce, a word that once felt distant and abstract, now hung in the air, thick and real. There was no coming back. The woman standing across from me wasn't the same person I had vowed to spend my life with. I didn't even recognize her anymore. Then, almost as if she sensed the storm inside me, her tone changed. There was a cruel edge to her voice now, taunting. "Oh, lighten up, Travis," she said with a smirk. "If you're that bothered, I'll record it for you. Maybe then you'll see it's not such a big deal." Her words struck like a blow. "You'd actually do that?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief. She shrugged like it meant nothing. "Why not? You could even watch it. Who knows? Maybe you'll get into it." I stared at her, stunned, speechless. What kind of person says something like that? And yet, beneath the raw emotion, something shifted in my mind. A calculated thought began to take form. Maybe I could use this. If she really went through with it and recorded herself, it would be irrefutable proof of betrayal. No more arguments, no more gray areas. The evidence would be damning. The courts would have no choice. She'd lose everything. Custody, the house, all of it. I took a steadying breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I couldn't let her see what I was thinking. Not yet. "Fine," I said at last, masking my true feelings. "If that's what you want, go ahead." Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. "Just like that? No more shouting? No more threats?" I gave a casual shrug. "Maybe I'm just tired of fighting." She didn't say another word after that. But even though the conversation was over, the battle between us had only just begun. "If it really matters that much to you, then fine. Do what you feel you have to." That was all I could bring myself to say as I stood there, watching her. Her eyes met mine, steady, unreadable, before she gave a slow, deliberate nod. "All right. I'm going," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't need to worry about me, Travis. I know how to have a good time on my own." I didn't respond. There wasn't anything left to say. Without another word, she turned and walked out. The door shut with a soft but final click, and an eerie stillness settled over the room. That night, as I lay in bed, her words looped endlessly in my mind. Record the whole thing. I couldn't make sense of it. Not just that she was willing to be with someone else, but how casually she tossed the idea around, as if filming it made it somehow trivial. A joke. It wasn't just infidelity. It was audacious, cruel, unfeeling. If Lena was ready to cast aside everything we built for a night of reckless pleasure, then I was determined to ensure she carried the full weight of that decision. When the evening finally came, she looked stunning, dressed not like a wife going out for air, but like a woman headed to a date. Her black dress clung to her like it had been waiting for this exact moment. She slipped on heels I hadn't seen in ages and barely glanced my way as she reached for her purse. "I won't be back early," she said, voice light as a feather. "Don't forget your camera," I muttered, bitterness laced through the words like poison. She shot me a frigid glance but didn't dignify it with a response. And then she was gone. The second the door closed, I moved. I called my mom, and without giving her the full picture, asked if she could take Eliza and Brandon for the weekend. She didn't ask many questions. Within the hour, I'd packed their bags and dropped them off. Back at the house, I poured myself a strong drink and sank into the silence. My mind kept spinning, replaying the hours ahead of me, trying to prepare for what was coming. Anger and grief twisted inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wouldn't last forever. Tomorrow, I'd have what I needed. And then, I'd start cutting her out of my life. Lena came home just after 10 the next morning. Her hair was a mess, makeup smudged beyond recognition, her dress wrinkled like it had been slept in. Yet she walked into the kitchen with a self-satisfied smirk, like nothing had happened at all. "So," she said, arching one eyebrow. I stared at her, my face unreadable. "So what?" She let out a short laugh, then pulled her phone from her bag like a magician revealing a trick. "I told you I'd film it. she said, holding it up like some kind of prize. There. Now you can stop acting like it's a big deal. It didn't mean anything. Her indifference hit me harder than any confession ever could. I didn't trust myself to speak. I simply reached out, took the phone, and turned toward the stairs. Wait. Where are Eliza and Brandon? She asked suddenly, scanning the empty house. They're with my mom, I said without turning. Figured it was best they didn't see you come back like this. Her mouth opened as if to protest, but she caught herself and rolled her eyes instead. Seriously, Travis? You're being dramatic. They wouldn't have even noticed. I didn't reply. I just kept walking. Upstairs, I clenched my jaw until my teeth hurt. In the quiet of our bedroom, I plugged her phone into my laptop and began copying the files. My hands trembled. Some small, desperate part of me still hoped it was all a bluff. But the moment the first video started loading, I knew it wasn't. Every clip was a blow to the chest. The way she laughed, the way she touched him, the casual dismissal of everything we'd built. It was all there, right in front of me. Every second tore another thread from the fabric of our life together. By the last video, I felt completely hollow. This wasn't just betrayal. It was contempt. A mockery of our marriage, our promises, and the family we had built. And yet, in that emptiness, something settled. A sense of clarity. There was no going back. I saved every file to a secure drive, triple-checked everything, then pulled myself together and went downstairs. I handed the phone back to her. She was lounging on the couch, scrolling through something, and took it from me with a smug smile, clearly mistaking my silence for surrender. I hope it was worth it, I said, voice low and steady. Her smile faltered. What's that supposed to mean? You'll understand soon enough, I replied, turning away before she could say another word. I walked into the kitchen, poured another drink, and sat down at the table. My eyes locked on the wall ahead, already picturing the next steps. I knew exactly what I had to do. Tomorrow, I'd contact a lawyer. And I did. By the end of the week, I had consulted an attorney, mapped out my legal strategy, and filed the divorce papers. The footage Lena had so flippantly handed me became a powerful tool, one that gave me the leverage I needed for full custody and a clean financial break. But Lena, in true fashion, still didn't get it. You're blowing this way out of proportion, she scoffed when I served her the papers. This is just a heat-of-the-moment thing. But it wasn't impulsive. It was the outcome of every careless decision she'd made. And for once, she was going to deal with the consequences. You're just being emotional. No, Lena, I said, my tone steady, firm. This is what it looks like when I finally had enough. The kids were already staying at my mother's, so I packed a few necessities and joined them. I needed out, away from Lena, away from the mess. My mom's place became the only safe harbor, a quiet space where the kids and I could finally breathe. In the days that followed, it became painfully clear. Lena wasn't ready to face the fallout of her choices. Her mask of confidence began to crumble. The phone calls started, odd hours, trembling voice, pleading with me to give her another chance. Then one evening, she showed up at my mother's front porch, desperate to see our children. Travis, I didn't mean for this to happen, she cried, her face soaked with tears. I thought I was fixing things, not breaking them. You shattered everything the moment you walked out, I told her, blocking the entrance. You need to leave. The divorce process was just as draining as I had imagined, but everything shifted once the video evidence came to light. Lena's lawyer tried to paint the swinger party as a mutual agreement, something consensual between the two of us, but my attorney dismantled that lie in minutes. The judge didn't hesitate. Custody of Eliza and Brandon was awarded to me. Lena left with far less than she'd expected. I moved into a small apartment. Not much, but it marked the beginning of a new chapter. Lena remained in our old house, but the place had lost all meaning. It wasn't a home anymore, just the hollow shell of something that used to be real. Months later, I ran into Martin, the neighbor who'd hosted that infamous night, while grabbing groceries. He was visibly uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact as we exchanged stiff small talk. Then, after a pause, he finally spoke. "Listen," he began, shifting awkwardly. "I didn't think Lena would take things that far." My eyes narrowed. "What are you trying to say?" He hesitated, then sighed. "It wasn't just one guy. There were three." His words hit like a punch to the stomach. "Three?" I asked, barely able to get the word out. He nodded, almost apologetically. "I figured you had a right to know. I'm sorry." I didn't reply. I just walked away, my mind racing. I thought I already understood the extent of her betrayal, but that truth cut deeper than I expected. Looking back, I'm thankful I found out before losing more of my life to something so broken. Starting fresh wasn't simple, but I did it. For me and for the kids. As for Lena, from what I've heard, she's still in the same neighborhood. Only now, everything's different. The friends she once relied on are gone. Her reputation, what little remained, has vanished. Turns out, sleeping with half the party doesn't win you much loyalty. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you? Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It has been 7 years since our youngest child left for college, marking the end of our parenting journey. For so long, our lives revolved around raising 3 wonderful children. Now that they've all grown up and become independent, I thought this would be the start of a new chapter for us. I hoped that we would finally have time to focus on ourselves, but it seemed that the only thing truly holding us together was raising our children. We had always emphasized values like honesty, hard work, and self-sufficiency. These principles shaped our children, and they learned to stand on their own. Each of them chose stable, practical careers and quickly found well-paying jobs. Their father had wisely ensured that they wouldn't be burdened with student loans through careful financial planning. For 35 years, our marriage remained strong, based on our shared goal of raising our kids. But now that this mission was accomplished, it felt like Samantha and I were slowly drifting apart. Over the past 2 decades, she had become deeply involved in her job, a role in which she not only excelled, but also loved. I never fully understood the nuances of her work, and didn't take much interest in it. She was comfortable at work, and that was enough for me. Our mortgage was fully paid off, and we had enough savings to comfortably support the 2 kids who were still in college. Around 25 years ago, I started a land surveying business with 2 childhood friends, Oliver and Jack Brown. The idea was mine, and they eagerly joined to help make it a reality. However, a few weeks ago, something happened that threw me off course. I usually got home from work before Samantha and spent a few minutes sorting through the mail. One particular day, a letter from the Department of Health caught my attention. It was addressed to Samantha Murphy. Curious, I set aside the rest of the mail on the dresser, but kept this letter with me as I went to the kitchen to start dinner. Samantha usually arrived home an hour after me, giving me plenty of time to prepare everything. That evening, I was making lasagna. When she walked in, she warmly greeted me with, "I'm home, Charlie," and seemed genuinely excited about dinner. She mentioned that she couldn't wait to have lasagna with a glass of red wine. She kicked off her shoes, walked into the kitchen, kissed me on the cheek, and sat down. The letter I had placed on the table was right in front of her. Picking it up, she frowned and asked, "What's this?" She held up the envelope as I placed the lasagna dish in front of her. "I was hoping you could tell me," I replied, taking my seat and pouring 2 glasses of inexpensive red wine, our usual choice for no special occasion. "It came in the mail today." Though I was ready to start eating, Samantha opened the letter first. As she read it, her face darkened, and she muttered a curse, something she rarely did. "Is something wrong?" I asked cautiously, sensing the tension in the air. "Someone used my name to get tested for an STD," she said angrily. I've been ordered to take a test by the end of the week. I blinked, stunned by what she had just said. Do you have any idea who might have done this? I asked, genuinely puzzled. Don't be ridiculous, Charlie. Of course I don't, she snapped, clearly irritated. Trying to defuse the situation, I asked, well, if you had to guess, who would be the most likely culprit? Her anger flared. This is no joke, Charlie. I have no idea how to figure out who did this. There's no name, just a demand to take the test. It's absolutely absurd. Sensing her anxiety, I suggested, let me take a look at the letter. Maybe there's some kind of reference number or clue we can use to trace this. She handed me the letter, but her worry was evident. I hate this situation. I don't like that this is happening, and I'm not thrilled about you getting involved in investigating it. It just feels wrong. But if you think it'll help, go ahead. I'll look into it tonight, I reassured her. I doubt I'll get very far, but at least I'll try. You can handle it tomorrow if needed. Still uneasy, she wasn't entirely convinced. Half-jokingly, I said, why didn't I get a letter too? Samantha didn't appreciate the joke. You're being a smartass and I'm not in the mood. She pushed her plate away, having lost her appetite. I realized I needed help. Grabbing my phone, I decided to call Jack. His wife worked at a hospital, and I thought she might be able to provide some insight. Jack, it's Charlie. I need a favor, I said when he picked up. Sure, what's going on? He replied. Today, Samantha got a letter from the Department of Health. It was about an STD. I have a case number from the report. Is there any way for Sarah to track who submitted it? I know it's supposed to remain confidential, but something's not right here. If Sarah doesn't have access to that information, maybe one of her friends does. Send me everything you've got, and I'll take care of the next steps. It might take a day or two to get something substantial. It was easiest to send him the report via email. Fridays were usually reserved for our Chinese takeout night. I had everything ready, setting the table and brewing tea while Samantha went to pick up the food on her way home. She came in smiling and handed me a medical certificate from the clinic. Do you know a guy named Kyle Tremblay? I asked, watching her reaction closely. The question clearly unsettled her. Yeah, of course. He's the guy I fired 5 years ago for harassment. You remember? I told you all about it back then. I thought he'd left town for good, she said in an even voice, though I sensed something underneath. Well, he's back. He's living nearby now. Have you seen him recently? Annoyance flared in her eyes. Enough, Charlie. No, I haven't seen him, and I haven't had any contact with him since. I've always been honest with you. Right, now I remember, I replied, pretending to recall. He kept pursuing you, so you filed a report and he got fired. He wasn't happy about it, was he? No, he wasn't, she admitted. He threatened me when they escorted him out, swore he'd get revenge, but years have passed and I thought it was all behind us. I promise, Charlie, there was nothing between us. She sounded sincere, but still, something felt off. It was obvious the situation was weighing on Samantha. She wasn't herself. She'd become more distant, less vibrant. Something had changed. With that nagging feeling, I decided to head to Kyle's apartment, determined to stay calm and keep my emotions in check. I needed clarity, and I was going to get it. When I finally saw him, he looked slimmer than I remembered, even smaller. There was something about him that seemed even more unpleasant than before. My name's Charlie Murphy. You know who I am? I asked, fixing my gaze on him. He straightened slightly and met my eyes. Yeah, I know who you are, he said, a little more relaxed than I expected. I think I know why you're here. Want to come inside? His calm response threw me off. His apartment looked like a second-hand store's clearance section, but surprisingly tidy. Take a seat. Want a beer? He offered. I reluctantly nodded. He handed me a bottle, and I took a sip, not really enjoying it. So, how do you want to talk about this? I think you know most of the story, but I'm curious. Why did you mention my wife's name at the clinic? You didn't sleep with her, did you? I asked, studying his face. He smirked slightly, taking a sip of his beer before responding. No, I didn't. Believe me, I tried, but it didn't happen. So why did you even bring her up? I pressed. He leaned back, sighing. Look, you know the story. I was angry at your wife back then. It wasn't about revenge or anything like that. I just couldn't control myself. I got an STD, had to go to the clinic, and when I was filling out the forms, I guess I couldn't hold back my feelings. I added her name to the list just for fun, nothing more. That's all? Yes, really. I can't believe you two are still together. I thought you'd have sorted this out by now. Sorted out what? He finished the last sip of his beer and glanced at my empty glass. Want another one? I gave a slight nod but politely declined. He took my glass, refilled his own, and turned back to me. Mr. Murphy, I didn't just flirt with your wife, I blackmailed her. I'm not exactly charming or attractive enough to win over a woman like her purely on charm, so I needed some leverage. After some thought, I decided to intimidate her. I warned her that I'd expose her affairs if she didn't agree to meet me. But she wasn't scared, and before I could carry out my plan, she disappeared. I ended up in the hospital, and after I got out, I headed to Texas. Wait, what? I interrupted, completely bewildered. Hold on, I'm totally lost. What were you expecting me to understand? I blinked in surprise. Wait, you didn't know your wife was cheating on you? His confusion mirrored mine, but before I could respond, he added, Yeah, I think I'll take that second beer after all. I spent another 2 hours with Kyle, and eventually, the whole story came out. My wife had been involved with 2 other men, Michael Lee and Alexander Smith, both mid-level employees at her company. They'd meet in a hotel room. As far as Kyle knew, the 3 of them never met all at once. He didn't know if these affairs were still going on. Kyle, on the other hand, had been attacked by 2 men after being laid off. They beat him so badly that he couldn't move for a while. He spent 2 days in the hospital, and after being discharged, he packed up and moved away. By that time, I owned half the business, and Oliver and Jack controlled the other 50%. I eventually sold them my share for a symbolic $1. In return, they agreed to pay me $5,000 a month as a consultant. All I had to do was create a cover for a blind manufacturing facility. It worked out well for them, and for me too. Meanwhile, Michael Lee and Alexander Smith continued working at the company. As my divorce proceeded, I also filed a lawsuit against the company. I left Samantha a signed document finalizing everything, emptied our accounts, cleared out the safe, and transferred everything to her name. 3 days later, I hit the road. Within a week, I bought an old trailer in a run-down mobile home park. Soon after, I bought a new car, got a fresh driver's license, and a new phone number. By the end of the month, I had a stable job. I even opened a new bank account. Life became pretty simple. No, I didn't buy a toaster. The checks from Oliver and Jack were deposited directly into my new account. I waited 2 months before reaching out to my lawyer. Wilson, it's Charlie Murphy. Charlie, good to hear from you, Wilson said. You left behind quite the complicated situation, but things are settling down. How are you? Couldn't be better, I replied. I've moved. I've got a trailer with air conditioning, a fridge full of beer, and a lot of books. Life is good. That last part even made me smile. Well, looks like you've got it all figured out, Wilson said with a laugh of his own. Let me tell you what happened. The beginning wasn't easy. As expected, Samantha hired a lawyer. She was ready to dispute everything, but since you sold her the house for $400,000 and only took $40,000 in cash, her lawyer advised her to accept the terms and move on. That was exactly what I was hoping for. How much longer do I have to wait? I didn't know you were in such a hurry. I'm not rushing. I just want to wrap everything up quickly. All right, let me check. You'll officially be free in 20 days. Can you wait until then? I think I can. I'll send you my new contact details. Email, phone, and address. Do you need anything else? Actually, yes. There are a few documents that need your signature. The company wants a settlement agreement, but they require a notarized waiver. They're offering $500,000. Does that work for you? Are you serious? I wasn't expecting to get anything. I just wanted to make a bit of noise. I assume you'll get your cut? Oh, of course, Charlie. I'll take my 30% commission off the top. I was struck by the fact that Samantha didn't even try to find me. I also hadn't heard a word from the kids or any other relatives. On the other hand, I hadn't contacted them either. It was unclear whether they didn't care or if I'd managed to disappear pretty well. I figured none of them cared. Whatever Samantha had told them, she must have come up with some explanation. But that was something to worry about later. Life had been fairly calm for the past 2 months. The job required the whole crew, and we even had a police officer stationed at one end. It was tedious work, and I wasn't as focused as I should have been. The cars were coming from the east when a silver car stopped right in front of me. I gestured for the driver to keep moving, but instead, the window rolled down. "You're easy to find, Charlie," a voice shouted. "You really should have considered changing your name." My first thought was, why the hell is Michael Lee looking for me? This definitely wasn't good. I backed away from the car as soon as his right hand appeared with a terrible black revolver. Instinctively, I threw my traffic flag into his window and bolted toward the castor bean field on the other side of the road. The revolver let out a deafening sound. I didn't know where the first shot went, but when he got out of the car, his aim improved significantly. The second shot hit me in the back, but there was no pain as I expected, more like a burning sensation. The third shot missed. He was now on foot, chasing me and shooting, but his coordination was off. By the time I reached the thick brush, I saw him trying to reload when I looked back. What should I do now? The next shot didn't come from him. It was quieter, sharper. Lee dropped his weapon and grabbed his leg, collapsing to the ground. Officer Isabella Garcia, our stationed cop, had stepped in just in time. She kicked his revolver away and stood over him, talking into the radio on her shoulder. I figured I was safe now, and slowly walked toward them. "You okay?" she asked, not taking her eyes off Lee. "I think so." "Not sure," I replied, still trying to process what had just happened. I stayed aside as she began reading him his rights. Lee wasn't listening to a word she said. It seemed her knee had hit him, and he was far more concerned with that. She kept speaking into her radio, and 5 minutes later, more police and an ambulance arrived. They had to make their way to where we were, but they got there fairly quickly. The paramedic looked at me and couldn't suppress a laugh. He pointed at Isabella, and soon we both got the details of the incident. Continuing to explain to Isabella and me, he added, "He's got about 6 pellets lodged in his hands and back." He quickly reassured us, saying there was no need to panic. All the pellets could be easily removed at the emergency room, and I would likely go home right after. It was just a minor outpatient procedure. "Can I just take him to the ER in my patrol car?" she asked, clearly impatient. "I really don't want us both crammed into the ambulance," she added. Soon, we found ourselves in her patrol car, properly introducing ourselves. It seemed she was running on an adrenaline rush after the incident, using our short trip as an opportunity to escape her duties. It felt like she was trying to avoid facing her superiors. "Are you okay? You look a bit tense," I noted, noticing her nervous glances in the rearview mirror. "I think I made a mistake," she admitted. "I shouldn't have shot that guy." "What other choice did you have? He was shooting at you," I pointed out. She sighed. "Maybe I could have resolved it without using force." "You've got to be kidding," I replied, but she just shrugged. A brief silence enveloped us, but it didn't last long. "By the way, that knee strike was really impressive," I said, trying to lighten the mood. She chuckled quietly. "Actually, it was a body strike, not a knee strike." "Oh," I said, and we both laughed as we neared the hospital. In the emergency room, the removal of 8 pellets from my back seemed to make the day for the medical staff. They traded jokes, each trying to outdo the other with humor. In the end, they even handed me a small trophy bag with the extracted pellets. Isabella stayed nearby, adding a couple of jokes herself. When the doctors finished their work, my boss came by to tell me I should take a week off to recover. At the same time, Isabella's boss called her, reprimanding her for leaving the scene of the incident. She was suspended until the investigation into the shooting was completed. "Hey, Murphy, what do you want to do this week?" Isabella asked with a playful smile. I smiled back at her. Noticing my concern, she offered to take me home. One thing led to another, and in the end, she stayed with me for 2 days. During that time, Michael Lee, a man I had met before, was furious with me. He had lost both his job and his wife, while Alexander Smith had disappeared without a trace. Details emerged when they interrogated Lee, but he never mentioned my wife. No one could explain how he found me. A year passed, and Isabella and I were living together in a cozy apartment. We hadn't gotten married, there was no pressure for that. We were content with what we had. Having gone through failed marriages, both Isabella and I were cautious when it came to serious relationships. She continued her work on patrol, and I remained a flag officer. We weren't looking for anything more. Our compatibility was evident, both in our relationship and in bed. What more could a man want? As Christmas approached, I realized it was time to reconnect with my children. So much time had passed, and they told me that after the divorce their mother had fallen into despair. One day she drank too much and drove home, but she never made it. A horrific car accident took her life. I didn't even have to take revenge on her. Fate had taken care of that for me. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. As soon as I walked into the house, it was immediately clear that something was wrong. Harper stood awkwardly in the living room, nervously shifting from foot to foot, her hands tightly clasped together. 30 years of marriage had taught me to read her like an open book, and today her behavior was far from normal. She had returned from her dentist appointment a little earlier than I did, as usual. Usually, by the time I got home, Harper had already changed clothes and started preparing dinner. But today the kitchen was quiet. No smell of food, no signs of her usual evening routine. She was still in the same clothes she'd worn to work that morning. When her behavior changes, it's a sure sign that something is brewing. "Mason, we need to talk," she said, her voice tense with anxiety. I quietly sat down and gently responded, "Of course, dear." Now it was her turn to speak. "What's going on?" I asked cautiously. Harper hesitated for a moment, clearly searching for the right words. "This isn't easy to say," she began, her voice becoming more confident. "I want to separate, maybe even divorce." Her voice was gaining momentum. "I think a temporary separation is the best way to start, but I have to be honest. This might lead to a permanent break." "All right," I calmly replied. "I'll leave right now." I stood up and headed to our bedroom, catching Harper's gaze, a mix of confusion and disbelief. She clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. One of the hallmarks of our marriage had always been my ability to react in ways that surprised her. Harper was predictable. I was not. If my calm response had stunned her, what I did next left her completely speechless. Less than a minute later, I returned to the living room with 2 fully packed suitcases and placed them by the door. I pulled a small slip of paper from my pocket and handed it to her. "Here's where I'll be staying," I said, "and my new phone number. You can still reach me on my cell." I added one final condition. "There's just one thing you need to know. If you start seeing someone else, then we're done. This won't just be a separation, it'll be a divorce. But if you just need time to figure out your feelings, we can talk about coming back together when you've sorted it out. I won't tolerate being strung along while you explore other options only to return when it suits you." Before Harper could gather her thoughts, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. "Hi, Isabella. It's Mason. How about dinner on Friday night?" I asked. Her response was immediate and playful. "You already know the answer. I'll be there, probably without underwear," she teased. Smiling, I ended the call, grabbed my suitcases, and headed for the door. Harper stood frozen, watching me calmly walk to the car. That evening, Isabella and I had a simple steak dinner, nothing fancy, but pleasant enough. Eventually, we ended up at my apartment, where she brought me to the height of pleasure, just as the phone on the nightstand rang. Still wrapped around me, Isabella answered it. "Hello?" she responded, slightly breathless. "Harper?" she asked with a smirk. "He's a little busy right now. I'll have him call you back later. Give him a little time to finish up. I think he'll be free in about half an hour, maybe longer if we're having a good time," she added with a laugh, then hung up. Turning to me, she started moving faster again, laughing. "Wow, I never thought talking to someone's wife while I'm with her husband could be so much fun." We climaxed together, and after catching my breath, I picked up the phone. I dialed the familiar number that had been mine for so many years until today. Harper answered before the call could go to voicemail. "Mason, is that you?" "Yes, it's me," I replied, barely holding back the satisfaction in my voice. "Sorry I missed your call earlier. I was a little preoccupied. But now I'm free and calling you back." "Mason, what the hell is going on?" Harper's voice trembled, struggling to comprehend what was happening. "You had everything prepared in advance, bags packed, a new place ready, even before I mentioned the possibility of living apart. And then, when I tried to call to discuss everything, another woman answered your phone. She practically admitted that she was with you. I wasn't going to be caught off guard when you announced the breakup." Surprisingly, the blow I received just a few minutes ago wasn't as strong as I expected. Isabella wasn't the type to make a scene. At least, that's the impression I had. I couldn't help but smirk, lazily running my fingers along the smooth line of her skin. If this was crucial to deciding whether Harper and I could rebuild our relationship, maybe it was worth discussing. But my thoughts were cut short by Harper's sharp voice slicing through the air. "You're a liar. You promised we wouldn't sleep with other people while we were on a break. It was just supposed to be a time for reflection." I looked at her without showing emotion. "That's not exactly what I said, Harper. I said that if you slept with someone else, it would guarantee a divorce. I never promised anything about myself." Her voice flared with anger. "You're unbearable. How can you think the rules don't apply to you? If you can sleep with anyone you want, then so can I. What's fair for one should be fair for the other, right?" I remained calm. "Of course, Harper, you can do whatever you want. But if you do, it's over between us. I won't stay if you make a fool of me. By your logic, we should end everything right now because you've already crossed the line. Maybe we should start the divorce process on Monday morning," she threw back sarcastically. "Isn't that fair?" "Not exactly," I replied calmly. "You were the one who asked for the separation, not me. I didn't sign up for this. You're the one who cut off our relationship, our physical connection, without even asking me. You had a choice, Harper. That's the difference. And don't forget, I made it clear from the start. If you sleep with someone else, we're done. You never said anything about me." I paused, letting the tension hang in the air before continuing. "But if you've made up your mind about divorce, then go ahead and file. It's your decision." Her tone softened slightly, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "I don't know if I want a divorce, Mason," she admitted. "I just needed space, time to think. I only asked for a separation." I shrugged, staying indifferent. "Then there's no problem. You got your separation." "But now you're sleeping with someone else," she countered, feeling her frustration rise again. "And if I do the same, you'll leave me. That's not fair." "Not fair?" I echoed, my voice growing harder. "I didn't ask for this separation, Harper. I didn't want any of this. I wanted us, our life, our marriage. You were the one who decided to tear it apart. And now you expect me to sit around without any intimacy while you figure things out? That's not going to happen." I leaned back, adding sarcastically, "If it makes you feel better, you can come over 3 or 4 times a week and we can still sleep together." Her face twisted in disbelief. "What kind of separation is that? No one does that. The whole point of a separation is to create distance. You just don't get it." "I didn't get a manual on how separations work, Harper," I snapped. "But if you show up here and expect everything to fall back into place, don't think I'm going to hold back. I'm done playing by rules that only apply to me. Our marriage did that for far too long. Now I'm finally doing what I want, and I'm not giving that up." I leaned in closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. "So if you do show up, be prepared for what happens. Don't expect to just lie there like nothing has changed. Either show your best, or don't come at all." Harper's voice trembled, her shock displacing her anger. "What's happened to you? All I wanted was a little time to figure out if we could still save our relationship. And now, just a few hours later, you've become someone I no longer recognize. I can't shake the feeling that you've been deceiving me for years, acting in the shadows while I remained completely unaware. That's absurd. I have never betrayed you and never even thought about leaving. All I've ever done is try to find a way back to myself, and that path led me to another woman." "We'll talk tomorrow," I said, abruptly ending the conversation. "Unbelievable. Isabella quietly laughed. That conversation was surprisingly captivating. You really stood your ground against your wife? Did she just call me a scoundrel? I've always been cautious. It's been instinctual for me. It's what helped me avoid the pitfalls of life, unlike many others. But Harper, my wife, is the complete opposite. She rarely notices anything unless it's right in front of her. Harper was constantly talking about the new dentist at her clinic. This man, knee-deep in a divorce, described his soon-to-be ex-wife as deceitful and unfaithful, but to Harper, he was nothing less than a hero. Then suddenly, a few weeks ago, her endless chatter about him stopped. Every time I tried to bring him up, she dodged the topic. It was as if this man had just vanished without a trace. That sudden silence intrigued me far more than her endless conversations. So I took matters into my own hands. I tapped her phone, recorded her conversations, forwarded her emails to myself. I even hired a private detective. What I discovered was exactly what I suspected: a meticulously planned seduction. Dr. Smith, the charming dentist, had a clear plan: to get close to Harper. His divorce? A repeat of what had happened at his previous workplace. There were already rumors of unethical behavior from former patients. This guy was a slimeball. But to Harper's credit, she hadn't given in. Yet. She hadn't crossed the line into infidelity or destroyed our marriage. But Smith was slowly getting into her head, convincing her that separating from me wasn't a betrayal, that they could be together without crossing that final line. That's when I drew my line. If she wanted to stay in this marriage, she would have to keep her hands, and his, to herself. Isabella had recently joined our office, and we immediately hit it off. A widow, she had moved here to be closer to her daughter and grandchildren. When I told her what was going on with Harper and how I was planning to push her into an honest conversation, Isabella didn't hesitate to offer herself as the other woman. Monitoring Harper's messages, I knew she was planning to ask for a trial separation on Friday. That gave me time to come home at lunch, pack my things, and leave. I moved in with Isabella. She had 2 months left on her rental contract. From a distance, I continued keeping tabs on Harper. If she made even one wrong move toward Smith, I was ready to cut her off completely. Despite all of this, my loyalty remained steadfast. To Harper, to our children. Our son and daughter had already graduated from nearby universities and were building successful careers in neighboring states. I wasn't going to become an unfaithful husband or a serial dater. If Harper wanted to keep me, she'd have to fight for it. I wasn't going to beg her for love or affection, and even if we found a way to reconcile, it would never be the same. I wanted more from this marriage, more than just the occasional obligatory touch. I needed someone who was willing to meet me halfway, someone who wasn't afraid to break out of the usual boundaries. I was tired of living like a monk. After dropping Isabella off at the airport, I returned to the apartment and heard a knock at the door. To my surprise, Harper was standing there, her eyes filled with tears. I let her in, led her to the couch, and sat down beside her, patiently waiting for her to find the right words. After a long silence, she finally found the strength to speak, her voice weighed down by the burden she had carried for too long. "Mason, I've been such a fool," she began quietly. "I'm sure this won't surprise you, but for the last few weeks, Dr. Smith has been trying to get close to me. Strangely enough, you understand me better than I do myself. He convinced me to ask for a temporary separation so we could be together." Harper's voice was filled with deep regret as she confessed. "He said that if we were officially separated, it wouldn't be considered cheating, and that you would treat me better when I came back. But I was completely wrong. You were ready to leave for good. Your bags were packed, you had a new place, and even someone else was already waiting for you." She paused, her voice trembling as she continued. "And I thought I had a clever plan. Now I can't even fully grasp what I was trying to do. I had been plotting for so long, but I should have realized that you were one step ahead. When I called you that Friday night and a woman answered, almost admitting she was with you, I nearly collapsed. And when you called back, everything became clear. You really were with her." Tears welled up in Harper's eyes as she struggled with her words. It hurts so much, Mason. I've been replaying everything you said over and over in my mind all weekend. Slowly, I came to realize you were right. I was the one who wanted the separation, not you. Her voice softened as she confessed. My plan was to have some fun with Oliver Smith, then come back to you, thinking you'd never know. It was a terrible, selfish scheme. But you, Mason, you saw right through me from the start. You turned it all against me. Now you're the one who's been making love outside of our marriage without any guilt. If I had gone further and slept with Oliver, I would have ruined everything. She paused, reflecting on her actions before continuing. After hours of self-pity, yelling at myself and wallowing in misery, it finally hit me. I understood what I had been doing to us, what I had been doing to you, and I saw how quickly and decisively you acted in response to my selfish, thoughtless behavior. You won, Mason, and I deserved it. This morning I told Dr. Smith that he had crossed a line, she said, her voice more confident now. And what? You just turned him away and now you want me to act like nothing happened? I asked, disbelief clear in my voice. I'm just supposed to forget that you almost destroyed our marriage because of that scumbag? That you put me through hell because some guy wanted to sleep with you? Harper, you're a beautiful woman, and men will always be interested in you. Am I supposed to live in fear that this could happen again with the next one who pays you attention? No, Mason, that's not it, she whispered. And I wasn't the one who turned Smith away today. When he showed up at work, the police were already waiting for him in the parking lot. He was arrested. It turns out he's been accused of harassment. One of our patients, Mrs. Garcia, accused him of making advances on her while she was under anesthesia. And after that, other women started coming forward with similar accusations. He's a terrible person, Harper said with a bitter, grim smile. That's the man I almost destroyed everything for, Mason. I'm not surprised, Harper. I always had a feeling he was a predator, a man without morals. But now that he's gone, do you think we can just move on? I asked, the sharpness in my voice returning. No, Mason, she replied slowly, carefully choosing her words. I was hoping you would keep your promise, that you weren't lying when you made it. I've never lied to you, Harper, and I've always tried to keep my word. But what promise are you talking about? I asked, genuinely puzzled by her sudden change in tone. You said I could come to you 3 or 4 times a week. You said it would save you from having to convince other women to stay with you. Don't you remember? Harper asked, her eyes searching mine for acknowledgement. Yes, I remember now, I said, recalling that conversation. But I also said I wasn't going back to the way things were. I think I understand now, Mason, she whispered, her voice quiet but full of realization. Mason, help me understand better. Harper's voice softened as she spoke. I need you to promise me something in return. No more meetings with her, or with any other woman for that matter. By now, Isabella was likely high above the clouds and had no intention of coming back. As for me, no other woman even crossed my mind. Harper was the one I wanted, and my feelings for her were unmistakable, but I wasn't going to go back to her. She was going to cheat on me, and I couldn't forgive that. Go to hell, Harper. You're a lying cheater. I can never trust you, and besides, I don't believe you didn't cheat on me with that doctor. Goodbye. I swear I didn't cheat on you, she said with conviction. I don't believe you. You made your choice. You wanted freedom and now you have it. Enjoy it. I ended the relationship and I was moving on, perhaps even with Isabella. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. It all began one Friday morning when Merlin was getting ready for a weekend trip to Las Vegas. Her best friend Emma was about to get married, for the 2nd time. Yes, you read that right, the 2nd time. Emma's first marriage had ended badly, all because she couldn't resist the temptation of another man. I had always harbored suspicions about Emma, but Merlin, ever loyal, defended her without hesitation. She's changed, Merlin insisted, carefully folding a sleek black dress into her suitcase. She's ready to settle down this time. I shot her a skeptical look. Vegas for the bachelorette party? Really? Merlin sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. Andrew, please, don't start. It's just for 2 days and I'll be with the girls the whole time. She kissed me goodbye and promised to call each night. Though I wasn't thrilled about it, I trusted her, or I thought I did. On Saturday night, I was lounging on the couch watching TV when my phone vibrated. It was my cousin Matt calling. He was in Vegas that weekend, celebrating a promotion with friends. "Hey man," he said, sounding uneasy. "I'm not sure how to say this, but I think I saw Merlin at a club." My frown deepened. "Yeah, she's there for Emma's bachelorette party." "Are you sure? Because she's not just with the girls," Matt replied, his voice cautious. "She's with a guy, and they're pretty close." My stomach dropped. "Close? What do you mean by that?" I asked, my heart racing. "Dancing? Hugging?" "It doesn't look innocent," Matt answered. I could feel my head start to spin. "Are you sure it's her?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Yeah, I'm sure," Matt confirmed. "Do you want me to intervene? Let her know I'm here?" I paused, my heart pounding. If Matt stepped in now, Merlin would know someone was watching her. She might stop, but it wouldn't change the fact that she had crossed a line. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. "No," I said firmly. "Don't confront her. Just keep an eye on her." An hour later, my phone buzzed again. It was Matt. I braced myself, already dreading what he was about to say. "She kissed him, Andrew," Matt said, his voice tight. "I have a photo." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt as if the air had vanished from the room. My throat went dry, and my heart hammered against my ribs. "Send it," I whispered, barely able to speak. Seconds later, the message arrived. My hand trembled as I opened it. And then everything seemed to tilt. There she was, Merlin, my wife of 12 years. Her arms wrapped around another man in a dimly lit club. His hands were on her waist, their lips locked in a kiss that was anything but casual. I stared at the photo for what felt like an eternity. The image seared into my mind, her flushed face, her fingers resting on his shoulders, the unmistakable intimacy between them. It was real, and there was no denying it. "They're leaving the club now," Matt said. "Should I follow them?" Without hesitation, I said, "Yes. Don't lose track of them. Let me know where they go." The next 30 minutes felt like an eternity. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at my phone, waiting for Matt's updates. Each second dragged on, feeling endless. I imagined Merlin walking out of that club, laughing with this man, hand in hand, strolling down the bright, flashing streets of Vegas. Finally, my phone rang again. It was Matt, his voice strained. "They're heading to a hotel," he said. "I'm following them now. They're not even trying to hide it." "He's got his arm around her," Matt added. My stomach churned, and I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block out the thought. "Which hotel?" I asked, my voice tight. When Matt named the hotel, I recognized it instantly. It was Merlin's hotel. "They're at the elevator now," Matt said, his voice tense. "It's just the two of them. No one else around." I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, and my thoughts spiraled. This was the confirmation I had been dreading. "I don't think they're coming back down tonight," Matt said softly. I was paralyzed, unable to speak. I just sat there, numb. "Thanks, Matt," I said quietly. "I'll take it from here." "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. "No," I replied, my voice raw, "but I'll figure it out." When we hung up, I remained motionless, staring at the photo on my phone. The truth was right in front of me, undeniable. Merlin had crossed a line at the club, and now she was in a hotel room with another man, about to cross yet another irreversible boundary. I considered calling her, demanding an explanation, but what good would that do? She'd deny everything, twist the truth. I knew I had to confront her face to face. Only then would I get the real answers. I had to see it with my own eyes, even if it destroyed me in the process. My heart was in pieces, my hands shaking as I booked the earliest flight to Vegas. That night, sleep was a stranger. My thoughts raced, the image of the photo Matt sent and his messages replaying in my mind. Each time I shut my eyes, I saw Merlin in that club, her lips pressed against another man's. By morning, I was at the airport, sitting rigidly in one of the uncomfortable plastic chairs by the gate. The flight to Vegas felt like it lasted forever. My stomach churned, a disgusting mix of anger, betrayal, and unease twisting inside me. I couldn't stop staring at the photo on my phone, trying to make sense of how things had gotten this far. How could the woman I loved, the woman I thought loved me, do this to us? When I landed, Matt was waiting near baggage claim. He looked as drained as I felt, his usual confident demeanor replaced by an unfamiliar seriousness. "You okay?" he asked, giving my shoulder a quick, sympathetic pat. "No," I answered flatly, "but I'm here." "You sure about this?" he asked, studying me intently. "It's going to be messy, Andrew," I said, my jaw clenched tight, "but I need more proof." After several hours of staying in the background, Matt and I tracked Merlin and her friends to a rooftop bar with a stunning view of the Vegas Strip. It was the kind of place she loved, dimly lit, loud music, overpriced drinks. I stayed near the entrance, blending into the shadows, while Matt moved closer to keep an eye on them. "She's with Emma and the others," Matt whispered through the phone. "They're sitting by the edge of the patio." I edged closer, trying to stay hidden. From where I stood, I could see her clearly. Merlin, my wife, laughing as though she had no cares in the world. She looked flawless, her hair perfectly styled, the dress she wore hugging her body in all the right places. It was the same dress she had packed earlier that morning before she left for this trip, the one she had claimed was just for fun. A wave of betrayal crashed over me. That dress wasn't for me, it was for him. And then, there he was. I recognized him instantly, the man from the photo, tall, broad-shouldered, with a confident grin and an arrogant swagger. But he wasn't alone. Another man stood beside him, likely his friend. My blood began to boil as I watched Merlin's face light up when she saw him. She stood up, adjusted her dress, and wrapped her arms around his neck as he leaned in. "She's all over him," Matt murmured through the phone. "I can't believe it." Neither could I. I stood frozen, my fists clenched tight. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to confront them, to demand the truth, to tear into this guy. But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed undeniable proof, something she couldn't talk her way out of. The minutes dragged by as I watched them. The rest of the group faded into the background, and all I could focus on was Merlin and the man, laughing, touching, leaning closer. Then it happened. He leaned in and brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't pull away. Instead, she tilted her head, and their lips met in a slow, intentional kiss. I snapped a photo, my hands trembling with rage. But when I looked at the image on my phone, I knew it wasn't enough. A kiss could be explained away, twisted into something innocent. I needed more. Matt's voice crackled through the phone again, tight with tension. "You get that?" he asked. "I got it," I replied, my teeth grinding. "But we're not done. Let's see where this goes." After a while, the group finished their drinks and began to leave. Merlin walked out with the man by her side, while his friend chatted closely with Emma. The other women from the bachelorette party split off, laughing and heading further down the strip, clearly planning to continue the night. Matt and I followed from a distance, staying out of sight as Merlin and Emma walked hand in hand with the two men toward her hotel. My heart raced with every step, the crushing weight of what I was about to discover pressing down on me. When they reached the hotel entrance, Merlin briefly looked around, scanning for anyone who might be watching. Then, she and Emma led the two men inside. Matt and I slipped into the lobby just in time to see them step into the elevator together, the four of them, disappearing behind the sliding doors. My heart shattered. "What's the plan, Andrew?" Matt asked. Without hesitation, I answered, "We're ending this. I'm not leaving without the truth." Inside the lobby, I walked up to the front desk, my phone gripped tightly in my hand. I hadn't rehearsed anything. I just knew I had to act. The receptionist, a young man in his 20s, greeted me with a polite smile. "How can I help you, sir?" I pulled up a photo from my wedding day. In it, Merlin and I were smiling, our arms wrapped around each other, full of hope for the future. I showed it to the receptionist. "That's my wife," I said, my voice steady but cold. "She's been staying here for the weekend. I need to get into her room." The receptionist hesitated, his smile faltering as he looked at me with uncertainty. "I'm sorry, sir," he began, his voice unsure. "We have strict privacy rules for our guests." I interrupted him, my tone firm. "I understand your policy, but my wife is upstairs, and she's betraying me right now. I need to see it for myself." I leaned in closer, speaking softly. "This isn't just a feeling. I have evidence." I showed him the photo Matt had taken of Merlin kissing another man, my hand slightly shaking as I held it out. The receptionist glanced at the photo, his eyes widening. He seemed torn between adhering to his professional duties and showing compassion. "Please," I urged, my voice cracking with desperation. "I just need to know the truth. I'm not asking for anything more." He let out a long breath, clearly conflicted, before nodding slowly. "All right," he said, barely above a whisper. "But please, keep this discreet." He handed me a keycard, his fingers brushing mine for a brief moment. "Room 821, he added quietly. "Thank you," I responded, my voice thick with a mixture of dread and reluctant gratitude. The elevator ride to the 8th floor felt endless, my heart pounding in my chest, each beat seeming to echo in my ears. Matt had stayed in the lobby, ready to step in if things took a turn, but this was something I needed to face alone. As I stood before the door to room 821, I hesitated, my hand trembling as I held the key card. I pulled out my phone, started recording, and swiped the card through the reader. The green light blinked on, and the door creaked open. What I saw inside was worse than anything I could have imagined. Merlin was in bed with the man, his shirt discarded on the floor, and hers was nowhere to be seen. They froze at the sight of me, their faces twisted in shock and guilt. But there was more. On the opposite side of the bed, Emma was tangled with the man's friend. The laughter that had filled the room moments ago vanished as she turned to face me, her expression full of panic. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice quivering with emotion yet cutting through the stillness. "Someone explain!" Merlin scrambled to cover herself, clutching the sheets tightly around her chest. "Andrew, wait!" she cried, panic evident in her voice. "It's not what it looks like." I let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Not what it looks like?" I scoffed. "You're literally in bed with him, Merlin." I pointed at the man, who couldn't even meet my gaze as he hastily pulled on his shirt. Tears welled in Merlin's eyes, but I felt no sympathy for her. She had made her choice. Emma, ever the opportunist, tried to intervene. "Andrew, calm down," she said, wrapping herself in a robe. My anger turned to her instantly. "Don't even start, Emma," I snapped. "You're just as bad. Cheating on your fiancé days before the wedding? You think I'll let him marry you without knowing what you've done?" Her face drained of color and she stammered, "It's not like that. It was a mistake." I spun back to Merlin, my voice sharp with accusation. "A mistake? No. Emma may try to pretend her mess was a mistake, but you, Merlin, you brought him here. You invited them here. This wasn't some accidental slip-up. This was planned, and you've been lying to my face all weekend." Merlin began sobbing, her cries grating against my nerves. "Andrew, please," she begged. "It didn't mean anything." "I was drunk," she said, trying to explain herself. "Drunk?" I interrupted, my disgust palpable. "Don't insult me, Merlin. I've been watching you all weekend. You weren't drunk when you kissed him at the club. You weren't drunk when you brought him back to your room last night. This isn't a mistake. It's a pattern." She opened her mouth to argue, but I raised my hand to silence her. "Don't," I said, my voice cold. "I don't want to hear it. You've said enough." I stopped recording and shoved my phone into my pocket, my chest heaving with emotion. I stormed out of the room, the full weight of what I had just seen sinking into me. Matt was waiting in the lobby, his face somber. "Well?" he asked, his concern evident. "It's over," I replied, my voice flat and emotionless. "I've seen enough." The next morning, I called my lawyer to start the divorce proceedings. I didn't hesitate. I couldn't stay in this marriage any longer. Later, I met Merlin in the hotel lobby, knowing this would be our final confrontation. She looked as if she hadn't slept, her eyes swollen and red from crying. When she saw me, her face softened, and she hurried toward me, as though a few words could fix everything. "Andrew, please," she begged. "It was a mistake. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything." "I love you," she said, her voice trembling, her face streaked with tears. I stood there, numb, the reality of everything crashing down on me. The woman I had trusted, the one I believed was my life partner, had shattered that trust beyond repair. "It was important enough for you to deceive me," I shot back, my voice as cold as stone. "It mattered enough for you to ruin everything we had built together." Her face twisted with desperation. "I never wanted it to get this far," she whispered. "It was only meant to be one night." "One night?" I interrupted, the disbelief thick in my tone. "You honestly think sleeping with someone else for a single night means nothing? And it wasn't just one night. It was two. How many times, Merlin? How many lies have we been living?" I demanded, my anger boiling over. "I'm done with you." She collapsed in on herself, sobbing quietly, her hands covering her face, but I stood firm, unmoved. The truth was inescapable. The woman I thought I knew no longer existed. Before I left Vegas, I made sure to send the video to Emma's fiancé. No matter how painful it would be for him, he deserved to know the truth. About an hour later, he called me. His voice trembled. "Thank you for telling me, Andrew," he said, his words shaky and broken. "I don't know what to say, but thank you. The wedding's off." I didn't say much in response. I wasn't looking for thanks or validation. I wasn't trying to feel better about myself. I just needed to make sure Emma faced the consequences of what she'd done. As I boarded the plane home, the weight of the past few days hit me with the force of a sledgehammer. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. My marriage was over. The woman I thought I loved had betrayed me. But amid the pain, there was an unexpected feeling of relief. It wasn't the kind of relief I had expected, but it was there, undeniable. I deserved more than this. I deserved someone who wouldn't lie to me, someone who wouldn't shatter my trust. The days that followed were filled with endless paperwork, lawyers, and the overwhelming finality of it all. A week later, Merlin packed up her things. She did it silently, like she had no reason to stay. When the last of her bags were gone, it felt like the final chapter of my life had closed. The silence in the house was overwhelming, but oddly serene. I haven't spoken to her since, nor do I plan to. I've come to understand that some mistakes are simply too deep to forgive. Perhaps she felt remorse for what she had done, but regret doesn't heal the wounds. She made her decisions, and now I had to live with mine. For the first time in a long while, it felt like I was starting fresh, alone, but liberated. In the months that followed, I focused on myself. I threw myself into my work, rediscovered hobbies I'd long forgotten, and reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Slowly but surely, I started rebuilding my life from the wreckage she left behind. I wasn't looking for another relationship at that point, but one thing was certain. I wouldn't settle for anything less than someone who truly valued me, someone who understood that trust must be earned, not freely given. As for Merlin, I have no idea where she is now, what she's doing, or if she's learned anything from this. But that's no longer my concern. The only person I need to worry about now is myself. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. Some betrayals go too deep. In the end, I came to realize that walking away was the only option left. I had given everything, but she destroyed what we had, and that was something I couldn't repair. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.